Welcome back to the Survivor Game Show Network. I am your host, Alex Trias, for the recaps for the newest season, Season 3, Iririki Islands. This is our newest mini, and today I have two great guests to talk about the premiere. I have a production specialist, as well as the runner-up of our first season, Yasawa Islands. Jeremy Urban, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Ready to talk about the episode.
Awesome. And our special guest as well, a alumni of our second mini, Walamanu Beach. We have the amazing Brittley Walla. Brittley, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, and I'm really excited to dig into this premiere.
Well, let's get right into it. So we have our marooning, we have our two tribes. We have the Wota tribe and the Dak Dak tribe. The Wota tribe is made up of Steven, Garret, Meredith, Caroline, JS, Connor, and Jaden. And then for Dak Dak tribe, we have JM, James, Celestina, Tom, Bill, Vinny, and Brett. Among like just initial first impressions as a viewer, you're looking at these people, you're eyeing them up. Who are the people that you're thinking, oh, these people could be in trouble early, or this person could be a player?
Yeah, I definitely think just looking at the tribes and the cast initially, Vinny stood out to me the most. Could just definitely tell that he was going to have a huge personality, be able to play the game when he needed to, and probably is not going to take a lot of crap from anyone who's like throwing out his name. So I think Vinny was definitely going to be a character for this season.
I completely agree with that. I really liked Vinny's personality. From the Wota side, I really liked Garret and Meredith. They both kind of jumped out at me, especially with their personalities. And I think Garrett's going to have some really good gameplay going into this. I'm excited to see what happens there.
All great choices. The person for me that originally stood out for me was Bill, and that's for obvious reasons, because if you're a viewer of the Survivor Game Show Network and what we put out, Bill was just on our first long org Exile Island, where he was one of the pre-merge boots, but that was due to a swap that led to a rock draw in our world. That's the wheel spin. Jeremy's tribe in his first season loved the wheel. Brittley in her second season, not so much.
Yeah, definitely the Rock Club is growing in numbers.
Oh yeah, we may soon be able to have enough to have a tribe of people just that got wheel screwed.
Yeah, pretty soon we could have a season where it's just all rock outs.
Imagine
like
that
idea.
season, people. But so he's someone who also has people that have called out saying that they knew him or seen him play in other words, not in the long game, because the long game was not out on YouTube before this. But the main people we heard reference it are Tom and Vinny. Seems that for the moment, both of them want to have Bill around as well because they know him as a player.
Yeah, definitely. Watching Bill in the long game, what he says in this very first episode is that he's a loyal player, which I definitely think that he is. And so it's that kind of player is always someone really good to have around, because you always know what they say is what they're going to be doing. Unlike where you have some other players, they may be wishy-washy and may change their minds right before a vote happens and can cause a lot of chaos.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's also going to show that he's probably going to stay more along the lines of tribe strong or voting blocks, because even he had talked about how some of like his best games were when he stayed with his original 3 or 4 people he met up in his tribe. So it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens going into merge, if there's going to be much of his tribe left at that point, and see if he's going to have to shift gears and go with a completely new set of people.
Yeah, absolutely. But in order to figure these players out as the viewer, we have to see them do a challenge. And Brittley, I think you have some familiarity with this challenge if you want to speak on it a little bit.
Well, I am so glad that the first challenge was the Survivor charades. Like, that was so much fun on my mini that I was on when we got to do that. but it was hard to see both of the tribes kind of struggle at the beginning. And then they even had a huge lead by, I believe it was by 7 or 8 animals,
Yes.
and then just completely choked. And it just kind of broke my heart because I've been in that position with ping pong ball challenge. I think it was like a relay race challenge, and just feeling that pressure. And I could see it on Bill. I could see it on Jay, that they were just having such a hard time figuring out what that animal was. And then here comes Woda just catching up and passes them. And so, they both had their work cut out for them on trying to not only appease their tribe that they're in tribal council for, but also they had to show what makes them valuable to keep versus an easy vote out. And that's where some really good gameplay can come out for someone, and being able to, kind of keep your head down and not push too much, because you've already got people kind of, maybe not necessarily upset, but they're thinking about, oh, we wouldn't be here if it was you, but also weaving your way into where people think, it would be good to keep Bill or Jay, or maybe even both, in our tribe.
Absolutely. And we will definitely dissect a little more into that when we get to Dak scrambling, heading into their first tribal council. A spoiler alert, Woda wins. They come back from this big deficit. The main people that struggled in this were Jaden and Steven for Woda for guessing. They were having some trouble figuring out the clues that that Caroline and Garret were providing them. But then obviously the biggest roadblock was JM trying to show skunk to Bill. You could obviously see how anxious and paranoid, or not paranoid, but like just very nervous JM was getting, as they were forgetting some of the rules of what you're allowed and not allowed to do. But it's okay. In the pressure of the moment, it's your first challenge. You're going into this. But yeah, we thought this was going to be a challenge we could put in and be like, oh, easy, quick, and then they'll have tons of time to scramble because of how your season did it. That wasn't the case here. What you saw was real time, how long it took. Whereas with your season, it literally felt like it went under a minute and then a team was done.
Yeah, and definitely with this season, where people were struggling, what you saw on the WOTA side was they were able to be a little bit more adaptable with kind of like what they were showing with the animal that the person had to guess. And definitely everyone's going to be nervous as the first challenge, like you were saying, Alex. And if this is your first game playing, you're going to have a lot of nerves because you don't know what to expect. And I think that's kind of like where JM kind of struggled a little bit, was they just got flustered and a little bit kind of just like, oh, I don't know what to do now. Like, he's like, my guesser's not getting it, and what else can I do? And they just weren't like switching it up at all. And so they just kept trying to do the same thing over and over, and it just wasn't working. And they just needed to adapt a little bit and be able to put out some new content to keep.
Right. If anything, I thought like at the beginning of it, I thought he was doing some of the right things. Like he was trying to make this smell like, oh, it smells bad. And he did one moment, like plug his nose. He should have been just consistently plugging his nose to at least indicate to Bill that it was something that smells, because he did it so quick and then immediately like went away from it. And like when you're just doing this and then going like here, my calf, like, or I know he was trying to point like, oh, it stinks, like coming from behind, but it just looked like he was pointing at his ankle and his calf. So unfortunately, the question is, as they go into that scramble round, is what, or at least from Jay's perspective, is what's more detrimental, the person who was able to get his guesses right but had a hard time showing it? So was it really Jay not being good at showing it, or was it Bill not being good at guessing? I would argue it was a mixture of both, but the fact that Jay wasn't, it's Jay had the idea that it's the guesser's fault for not being able to figure out the clue. I would argue it's the person showing it because the guesser can only go based off what's being provided to them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like I would have a tough time in this challenge either way. I'm terrible at charades, so it's definitely a tough first challenge, especially if you with a group of people that you may or may not really know all that well, and so just trying to figure out like how to read people that fast is pretty challenging.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we do their tribal, I do want to touch on WOTA. What I really like about this episode is we do get to see the WOTA tribe confessionals post the challenge. So we do at least get to know them a little bit. It's not like in like Real Survivor where you win the challenge and then they're just all purpled out of the rest of the episode. You don't get to see them. They're there, but they're not there.
Right.
Really, I think the main points are like you see a lot of them like, yeah, we're stuck in one room, we're chalking. JS feels good with Meredith feels good with JS and Garret. But I think the key thing out of all of this was just Garret going, yeah, so during the challenge, I see all these capitalized letters in the host names, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. And then Tom, so what people don't know is Tom publicly in the Zoom chat was making public guesses for the idol clue. And thought that it was safety text or text safety in all caps when really Garret figures it out, or at least we think he figures it out because he doesn't know for sure at that moment is it extra safety? But wow, for someone who's played games like Tom, it was just like putting it like it seemed like a rookie mistake.
Maybe just with how. And again, being in a mini, just how fast paced everything is. I know even in my own season, we had kind of the same gaffe where someone kind of put out there to everyone being like, look under the urn or like things like that. And everyone was kind of looking at each other like, what is going on? But that is pretty like definitely a rookie mistake since, he's been doing it for a while. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what it is that Gareth got, and I'm excited to see the reveal of that. If it is extra safety, if it's an idol or an extra vote, like who knows? Like I don't know. I'm at the edge of my seat and I'm ready to know.
Right. And both of you guys who've played these games, I think Caroline also had a good line that's really true and indicative of what Survivor is. It's like winning that first challenge is so important because now we're not focusing on voting someone out. We're here like now vibing, like we're figuring out who we mesh with out of our tribe. So we get more time because once you start losing, that's when things start getting more ugly. It starts getting more real. It's like, okay, now you're actually playing the game. And like, I know both of you guys, you've won your challenges, you lost your challenges. Did you feel that difference between when you won versus when you lost? And just like how drastic of a difference is it?
Yeah, definitely. In the mini that I played, my tribe won that first challenge. And that small time that you have with just the tribe is so detrimental and crucial because you get to find out who you really want to work with in this game and who is a potential boot out whenever you do lose. And then once you finally do lose, the game picks up tenfold and starts like that. And you have to be ready to go.
Yeah, it makes such a huge difference winning because I know with my tribe, the first two challenges we lost. So we were constantly in, okay, we got to vote someone out. Okay, we got to vote someone out. And like already having to make those connections and make those alliances. So when that third trial came around and we finally it felt like you could breathe. Finally. And I just remember we were all in that same scramble room together, the not tribal, and we were just like, yay, like, super excited. We can relax, get to know each other, but also knowing that there's still a game going on. And I think our gears were already turning even from the previous tribal councils. So while we got to relax and take a breather, we were still having to think ahead of like, okay, well, what happens if we lose the next one, or when is merge happening, and also trying to pay attention to any clues or who was going into which scramble room. So it's just crazy, like how much on it you have to be during these minis.
Yeah,
absolutely. So that's essentially what we get. The rest of them are sort of like saying like, oh, we're excited, we won. It's like, I'm gonna play it low, like just typical stuff you say. So I ain't gonna brush on it. We're gonna go to Dak Tribe Scramble. And you know it's bad if you're in JM's shoes, where the first thing we see is he's in a room with Brett, and while he's trying to talk with Brett, you see Brett fidgeting with his iPad, then leave the room. And you get a confessional from Brett going like, I understand that what's happening is awkward. So guess what? I'm just going to be awkward about it.
Just, actually that could be a little bit of a strategy, like maybe just leaving without saying anything in that situation. And then you can kind of just be like, oh, I got pulled for confessional, if they're even paying attention to that.
Right. Right. Yeah. But so Jeremy, unfortunately, wasn't really in this position where he was like a potential target. Like he didn't get any votes cast against him during his season. Obviously early on, like you mentioned, because of a challenge performance, you felt in the hot seat. When it's so early, Brittley, is it hard to just like find a way to not be the name when it's that early? You don't have those connections yet. And is it really just sometimes it as simple as just luck that your name isn't the one that ultimately gets called?
I think there's definitely a bit of luck tossed in there, but there is a way, at least in my opinion, how I worked it was just trying to, you don't want to like come at everyone and kind of, you don't want to throw yourself on the sword so much and just say like, hey, like I know that was bad, but hear me out. You kind of want to take it slow, right. Come in and be like, hey, look, I know I did not do my best, and I'm sorry about that. And then just kind of just show what makes you a good person to keep around. And so really not trying to be at the forefront, trying to lead, just kind of taking a step back, letting them lead it. And hopefully you start picking up on other names. And for me, that's basically what I looked for. And once somebody else's name was kind of dropped as a potential person to look at, I seized on that opportunity and just kind of kept drumming it up just enough, not too crazy. Again, you don't want to just constantly just be like, hey, like save me. Yep. So it's a very delicate tightrope to walk, because you're in the hot seats, and it would not have surprised me if I was still like voted out. So, and I'm thinking, Jay, they're probably thinking along the same lines of, I'm probably going to see my name tonight.
Absolutely. So we do see sort of like a combination of scramble round clips of essentially a foursome within this 7 coming together in the form of Tom, James, Brett, and Bill. And Bill's just like, he's obviously pitching himself as a loyal guy. We get the episode title out of him. I don't want to be the appetizer du jour. I don't want to be the first course meal here. I love that. But like Bill's just so like his sayings and just like how he talks is that you can tell why he plays these games and that he can be a good player in them. It's because I think he's able to come across endearing, as well as just like, yes, I screwed up the challenge, but come on, like, look, I'm able to talk relaxed. I'm joking around, even though I can recognize I fucked up,
which is perfect.
Yeah. But like Tom immediately comes in. He's like, yeah, we're gonna do Jay. He's deciding I'm gonna control this vote. And you even see James in confessional go, I think this is why I want to be connected to Tom. He is sort of a loose cannon, but he's so dominating of a personality between him and Brett. He's like, they're perfect shields for me. So it makes sense to just say, yes, it's not my name. Why would I care? It puts me in a power position, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I think that's where some of that luck came in for Bill a little bit too, is that Tom has a little bit of a connection with him. And I think Tom naturally wanted to kind of protect him in this vote.
Yeah. But yeah, so Jeremy, I want to bring it to you now. We see a couple players sort of hiding a little bit of truth here. So James says he hasn't really played any of these before, when in actuality, he's a host of a Zoom survivor or community. So like he has all these games, and in his bio and everything, he was like, I'm going to play this down. I don't want people to know it because that will make me a threat and I'll probably go out early. I feel like Bill wasn't. Bill was very straight up. Like, I played a ton of games. Vinny's straight up saying, I played a ton of games. Like in these fast paced games, would it just be better just be very open about like, yeah, I've done this, but it doesn't make a difference? Or is it worth hiding?
It kind of depends on the type of cast that you have. If you have a lot of people who have played before and have played a lot of games, then you can be more open about it because everyone has been through the exact same thing. But if you have a cast where pretty much they're all newbies, and you're the only person that's played, that can be seen as a target, but it can also be seen as a huge resource because you know what to expect. And so you have to play your cards correctly. And I kind of think what Bill does, I think it's a good move. Just say like, hey, like I've played before. I just played this game a little while ago on SGSN. And I kind of know what the game kind of how it goes, and so he would be able to offer up some information. So I think that was a good move by him.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another part of all this is you see how people are pulled from scrambles is very much at random. And like you see Brett a little bit concerned in one of his confessions, like, oh, I think I have this really strong 4, but you just pulled me. So what if they think I'm somewhere else talking behind their back now? And like we ultimately see it with all 7 of them are in a room, and suddenly JM gets pulled for confessional. And right as he gets pulled, immediately Tom goes, okay, everyone, like, so we're the vote's J. Like, and you see Celestina sort of be like, oh, well, why Jay? Like trying to get some sort of explanation. But I understand her liking JM. But when you see a room of everyone else but them, and they're saying the vote is this person, and this is the first vote of the season, do you really want to fight back? Because when she says like, oh, it's not fair, she's not bringing up well, this is what should happen. So like, is it worth mentioning?
It's the first vote. In my own personal view, in the first, if you have to go to the first tribal council, you just want to make sure it's not you. And then hopefully the names that are being thrown out there are not the people you want to work with. And so I can definitely see why Celestina wanted some additional information on why they were wanting to vote Jay. But I think just maybe coming out that bluntly, just like, why? Why does it have to be him? Why can't it be anybody else? Instead of just saying like, okay, so is it mainly because tribal, the challenge? Is that why we're thinking Jay? Kind of like change up the question a little bit so it doesn't make it look like, well, I want to work with this person. I don't want to get rid of them.
Yeah. And then so between this part and also heading into tribal, we do get a discussion that ultimately I wasn't a fan of, because this isn't the time to talk. This is a winning tribe conversation that they're having. But I guess I should get your opinions on this. Like, are you both team Chipotle?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm a yes and no. I mean, Chipotle is fine. It's not the best. I mean, I grew up in New Mexico, so I know pretty good Mexican food.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, pretty much on the same lines as that. I don't think, like, again, not knocking it, if you like it, great. But it's definitely not on the top of my list when I think about spicy foods and really good, authentic Mexican food. So
Right. I'm not going to talk about my opinions on it, but I'm glad I got yours. But essentially, like the only reason why I wasn't like that thrilled with this part of the episode was just that the gamer in me is like, I get it. This is like a bonding time, even though it's a social round or a scramble round. But in my mind, I'm like, the social will come, and like there's other ways to be social than just like doing generalities. Like you only have X amount of time to get a plan together and like make sure it's not your name. So I sort of feel like the strategy of it all needs to take more precedence. But like you can still sprinkle in the conversation. But if you're spending like 5 minutes talking about
that.
if you're a fan of Chipotle or Qdoba or Moe's, you know, like there was a Baja Fresh at my place like 5 years ago. Like that, we could go on and on about Mexican food. You know, that's a great conversation. It's not a conversation I should be having when in 10 minutes someone's getting voted out.
Yes, I agree. Now, unless, flip it, someone was using it as a strategy to keep people distracted from talking.
I mean,
that'd be a different story, but that's not what was happening.
No,
here.
that was definitely not what was happening there. I agree with you though. If it was strategy and then you turn it into the Chipotle alliance or like the chips and queso alliance, like there you go. But we'll see what happens. We have a long season. I'm sure we'll have countless more discussions about whether or not people on this season like Chipotle or not. And I guess we're gonna find out if they're like if the fans are gonna be real haters of them or not based off these opinions.
Yeah,
not based off their game, but based off if they like Chipotle.
Thumbs up the video if you like Chipotle.
Yeah, thumbs up the video if you like Chipotle. If you don't press the thumbs down.
Don't press them.
You like if you don't, also hit the thumbs up. It's okay. We'll pretend.
That's right.
But essentially we go through tribal and we sort of rehash what we've just been discussing over challenge performance, day one impressions, all that. And when it's time to ultimately go to the vote, we are told there's not going to be a vote. Someone on the Woda tribe had to be medevaced and had to leave the game. So no one from their tribe is going home. And you see JM just like almost break down and just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And to be fully honest here, it's do you think it's truly his second life in the game? Like, it's almost as if he's the outcast twist. Because I feel like for the viewer, it was pretty straightforward. Yeah, it was going to be a 6-1 vote, maybe a 5-2 if Celestina does like a pity vote for JM as like because she did promise on her word that she would keep him or them. So is it essentially just like we treat him as if he just came back from Redemption Island or something? Like, oh, he's back.
I mean, anything can happen. I mean, I'm sure they were feeling like the survivor gods was smiling on them and saying, hey, like, you're okay. And so I'm interested to see what Jay does with this new life in the next go round, because things happen on a dime, and they could be like the tribe could go through maybe another bad challenge and it's somebody else that messed up real bad, and they can go, all right, well, what are we going to do about this?
Right.
So I'm curious to see what happens.
Yeah, it's basically after each tribal, you start a new round, and your mind has to be thinking, yes, these are the people that I'm working with, but also it's a fresh slate. Any one of us could be the target. And so that's what they have to be thinking going into round two. And they have to kick it into gear and pretty much show what they were talking about in the scramble room, saying that they are a strong competitor and they like to compete and they can help in challenges. They now have to show that in this next challenge. And if they don't and they lose again, I'm not sure if they're going to have another chance in this game.
Yeah. And plus, so far it seems to be kind of a 4-person alliance going on, but I don't think that will stay strong unless it makes it past a couple of challenges. So I think Jay, even if he and Celestina end up working together, they might be able to pull someone from that 4, or it may just be Tom and Bill and the other 2 end up shifting over. So there's a lot that can happen.
Yeah.
And so I think if Jay plays it right, especially now that he seems to have a friend in Celestina, that we might see them go further and maybe form a new majority group in the tribe.
Yeah, there's definitely endless possibilities. Obviously, this stings for Woda as like gaining that momentum of winning that first immunity just to lose someone anyway. And now, because of them losing someone and the pace of the schedule of the game, the losing tribe still has all their members. That could shift momentum. We won't know. We will see within these next few episodes that'll come out this week. As for the person who got medevac from the game, I do just want to preface, I'm not going to speak on the specifics, but it was nothing to do with an injury or anything that happened to them. I'm not going to disclose why the reasons were, but due to circumstances, they had to ask me in a private chat to let the production know that they needed to turn off Zoom, leave the game to take care of a situation. So it was very respectful. There was no ill will there. We make sure everyone prioritizes their life and the life of everyone around them.
Absolutely.
Before a game, because at the end of it, it's a game. There's no money at the end of the road here. So we respected their decision, and we'll find out next episode who it was. But with that being said, ending this episode, a lot happened, a lot didn't happen, but new season, new chances for MVPs.
That's right.
Oh gosh.
So, Jeremy, the veteran that you are, I would love to know for the premiere episode, week 1, who was your MVP and why?
Oh man. Okay. I would have to say Garret was the one who was making the idol clues, right? That sent it directly to Lauren. Yeah, yes. I think I'd have to go with him. He caught on to the clue right away and didn't make a rookie mistake in sending in a clue to the entire Zoom chat. If he actually got anything, we don't really know yet. But I think he's going to have my MVP this week.
Okay, Brittley, your first MVP selection.
I mean, I have to agree with Garret. I mean, finding those clues just right off the bat. I know from personal experience with my very first org, there were so many that I think back on now that I'm going, I should have caught that, and I never did. So I have to give Garret a lot of credit that just right from the gate, he was going, oh, and he had already seen it before that mass text was even sent out. And so that was just the extra hint that he needed to go, oh, and send it to where it needs to be. So I have to give it to Garret.
Okay. Well, this season is going to be different. I left myself out of the MVPs during the long game. I am putting myself in. So we'll always have someone from production, a guest, and myself putting MVPs in. My MVP, despite the rookie mistake, is Tom. Ultimately, if Tribal had happened, he would have gotten his objective to protect Bill first, get out Jay second, and created a majority alliance. Whether or not it sticks, like I love what Brittley was mentioning, like, oh, I could see it shifting, I could see it breaking, it could turn into something else. For this episode alone, I think he put himself in a good position. Maybe not a long-term position, but a safe position in the short term, and in a mini, sometimes that's all you need. So I will be giving it to Tom, but ultimately Garret gets 2 points this episode. Tom gets 1. We'll see what happens next week, but that wraps up the premiere recap for season 3, Iririki Island. Make sure you press that like button. click subscribe and click that bell for all notifications so you know when we put out new episodes, new recaps, new exit interviews, all the works. Join our Facebook page, Survivor Game Show Network. You'll be able to ask questions for the exit interviews and also know when new seasons are dropping, when we're getting cast applications out for future seasons. And it's a good community. It has a lot of people who love Org community, who love Survivor and other reality TV shows. It's the place to be. But with that, I'm Alex. This is Jeremy. This is Brittley. And we'll see you next time.